With Hasbro's upcoming D&D movie literally around the corner from the recording of this video, The Legend of Vox Machina coming off its second season, and The Mighty Nine now in the works, and the world of role-playing nerds waiting with bated breath to see if we're about to step into a new era of great experiences or just embarrassments of the early 2000s, I'm left to wonder something. What the heck happened to the conventional wisdom that you shouldn't adapt tabletop games into movies and television shows? When I first started doing D&D videos on this channel, I brought up that D&D can be extremely helpful to novice authors to help them hone their craft. However, I didn't recommend transposing your tabletop experiences directly from the game into your stories. Why? Because every published author said that that was a death wish, and everything other than The Legend of Drizzt stood as evidence to confirm that claim since the D&D show in the 80s was canceled. That is many decades of just sheer horrifying failure for anyone other than The Legend of Drizzt, who took their D&D stories and tried to stuff them into their own books, shows, or movies. But since then, what's happened? Why are we now getting D&D adapted stories everywhere? And how can we authors avoid the devastating mistakes of the past? Hi there everyone, Lars here from Camille's Harem. Not just a podcast for novice writers by novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers, because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends. And to help me answer these questions, I will be analyzing a variety of D&D inspired tales over the course of a kind of mini-series. Today I will be looking specifically at New Line Cinema's Dungeons & Dragons movie, the one from the 2000s that everyone conveniently has forgotten. Now, to answer the first two questions about what and why, first of all, D&D has suddenly become very popular as nerd culture has stepped into the cultural limelight. This means that tons of people are now playing all kinds of tabletop games, and they want more. That means that there's a lot of money to be made. And what could be better to help you make money and advertise your game than a solid, popular movie? Or if you're thinking a little bit smaller, a good television show. Basically, because corporations want money, they're willing to give it a go once again and try to tell D&D stories to wow dedicated fans and pull in new players. However, this will only work if the stories they wish to tell are good. That means that the upcoming D&D movie will only succeed if it can do the following: tell a memorable story, have fun and engaging characters, pull in the audience with great relationships and dialogue, provide plenty of entertaining fights and stunning scenes, and it must make sense. And because it is a D&D movie, they also must make sure that they cater to the hardcore fans of the tabletop experiences. That means that they need to have recognizable D&D monsters, they need to have spells from the game, classes and races from the game, weapons and world-building elements that most players enjoy, and give a healthy number of winks to cliches and inside jokes that most players know and love, or love to hate. There you go, there are your checkboxes. Easy, right? Well, if you ask the people who made the 2000s Dungeons & Dragons movie, yeah, it didn't work out that way. Granted, the film was sabotaged by both TSR and Wizards of the Coast. It had a very troubled production history, and I will post a helpful video to help explain all of that in the description. The thing is, the 2000s D&D movie failed at both being a good story and a good D&D likeness. First of all, as a story, it was all over the place. The plot is relatively simple, and if it was just the thieves and the wizard's apprentice going on a quest to stop the evil sorcerer and his paladin from overthrowing the malevolent empress, it actually would be pretty fine. But the thing is that there's just a bunch of useless characters and convoluted world building and wacky side quests with largely forgettable people all thrown into the mix. The only thing that really stood out was the funny, exceptional dungeon crawl, and some of the best parts, sadly, of the movie were actually not even shown on the screen. They were talked about while characters like, hey, I went on this adventure, I experienced this thing. Well, wouldn't it have been nice to have seen any of that? As a result, the plot was fractured, the world made little sense, it was easy to get lost. I don't even remember the characters' names! It was just all over the place. It was just a bad story. I liked the overall premise, but it was just executed so poorly. And really, Something that Nathan has said here on the channel multiple times, I'll reiterate right here, a story lives or dies by its characters, and I will reiterate that again. The characters in this movie were just bland. Just fresh after watching it. Like I said, I don't even remember the characters' names. I remember Jeremy Irons, but I don't remember his character's name. I just remember his performance. So their motivations, their personalities, their character arcs were all either exceedingly bland or even non-existent in the case of the dwarf and the elf, who serve to be there as just recognizable D&D races and their respective classes of fighter and ranger. Overall, it failed to do basic storytelling effectively. And as a D&D story, all it had to offer were Easter eggs. The Easter eggs of dragon types, a beholder, the early stages of tieflings, an orc, a few elves and dwarves, some stuff about basic world building, and little else. The reason why the Thieves Guild scene is so memorable is because the dungeon maze, where all of the great thieves' treasures are for some odd reason kept, is the most D&D thing in the whole movie. Why? Because it is fantastically ridiculous, and you realize a proper thief would have just gone through the back entrance. It would have been the paladin instead who would have acted and just attacked through the maze and tried to go through everything by smiting their way through in hopes of survival. Regrettably, the 2000s film just paid small homage and lip service to the actual game Dungeons & Dragons. Therefore, it failed on that front as well. Now, the upcoming film from Hasbro has potential, and it has the look of a D&D story, but there's more to it than just looks and telling a halfway decent tale that makes a good movie, and that makes a good D&D adaptation. A story inspired by D&D should also have what we players have come to expect: fun and camaraderie. The party within any D&D adaptation, whether book, television show, or movie, should function, even if they're dysfunctional. It should be a reflection of what the players at the table are like, or what their characters are like. We should be able to see that. And it should be because it is them that are making the choices, not the plot that is forcing these dysfunctional characters to work together. And like in any good campaign, each party member needs to have a chance to shine. And their solutions to problems should at times be brilliant and creative, throwing the audience for the same loop as the players did the DM. The story should show great ingenuity with classes and races. In short, an adaptation has to preserve that in-at-table feeling without becoming a cheeky, campy, fourth-wall-breaking mess. Unless, of course, that's exactly the kind of story you want to tell. And if so, then may I suggest you watch my analysis of cartoon specials where they played D&D, because you'll get all of that there. Now, I am looking forward to the upcoming movie. I will be running my critical eye over it to see if it meets the expectations that I've listed in this video. If it does not, well, we'll see what the fallout is. And I will be turning this same analysis on over to The Legend of Vox Machina, as well as other filmed and animated stories that have patterned themselves directly from campaigns told at the table. Let me know what you think about my qualifiers for a good D&D adaptation, and let me know if there's a specific story that you would like me to analyze in the future. In the meantime, if you're looking for solid writing advice, please check out our other videos. You can head on over to our podcast, Camille's Harem. We have writing exercises for you to check out over at our Pinterest page. And of course, we would love for you to join our ever-growing community of novice authors. Links for all that and more are in the description below. And until the next video, y'all, thank you for joining us on this adventure that we call writing, and tschüss.